Good afternoon, Kevin.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm awesome. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you so much for joining me on Michelle's Conversations That Matter.
Well, thank you so much for having me. We're excited to be here today.
This is such an exciting conversation for me. I have known you for a little while now, and I am just in awe about the work that you're doing in the mental health space. And I just want to share you and what you're offering and your documentary and all the good work you're doing. I want to share you with the world because I feel like people need to know about the Quell Foundation and what you're up to. So we're going to talk today about turning advocacy into statistical change.
Yeah.
And before we dive into that topic, just a little bit about what I do with Michelle's Conversations That Matter. So I'm out to, much like you, eradicate stigma that prevents so many people from getting care. I want to elevate the conversation so people understand mental health. I want to inspire people. I want to educate them. So that's what I'm doing with the series. You are probably episode 110 or 111 right now, and I'm excited about that. And what I do professionally for the world to know is I work with organizations to build cultures of compassion for people with invisible disability and teach resiliency to employees so that they stay engaged in their life and engaged in their work. So we have Joe Ingram here saying hello. Happy Monday. Good to see you, Joe. Thanks for joining us. So take a second, Kevin. I know all about you. If you could just introduce yourself, who you are, where you live, and what you do for a living.
Well, thanks so much for allowing me this opportunity to share a little bit about the Quell Foundation and what we're doing. Joe, thanks for jumping on. We appreciate that. So the Quell Foundation, we're only 5 years old, started in 2015, in December of 15. And the goal of this organization is to reduce the number of suicides and overdoses and the incarceration of people living with the challenges that come with having a mental health condition. And I feel strongly that we'll be able to do that if we remove the stigma associated with it and start normalizing the conversation. People will be less likely to self-medicate, as we might do in the absence of effective treatment, and maybe reach out and get some help. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, and we've been very successful, as I said, in the last 5 years.
So tell us a little bit about you, though, Kevin. Why are you so connected to wanting to do this work? A little bit about your connection to this work.
Cool. Yeah, so a little bit about me. I've been all over the place. I'm a submarine veteran, spent a lot of time in the military on nuclear-powered submarines. When I got out, I went into healthcare. I just love being around people and helping people in their time of need. And in 2012, my son was being released from a maximum security prison. He had bipolar disorder and he got into some trouble. So I left my job in healthcare, went up to New England to work with him to help reintegrate into society. And at 26, he thought he was too old to go to college. So I said, well, Nick, I'm 49. I'll go to college and get my master's degree. We can do this together. So I did a master's at 49, and I wrote my thesis on mental health in America. And when I was finished with school over at Penn State, I was offered a job as a chief operating officer of a hospital. But I had learned so much about mental health and this underserved population of people that I spoke with my wife and said, give me a couple of years. Let me see what I can do. If I can have a footprint, if I can maybe change the way society views and treats people with a mental health condition. So that's when I started the Quell Foundation, was to really be able to normalize this conversation. And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that I'm in this space right now. It's nowhere where I ever thought that I would be 20 years ago, but I'm thrilled to be here.
It's an awesome journey. I can say the same thing about my journey. I thought I would never have thought in a million years I'd be an advocate for mental health, wanting to make a change. But like, we get connected to it, and it's hard to look the other way once you know that there are so many people out there suffering, and that there's embarrassment around something that's so common, brain health. It's absolutely absurd. So tell us a little bit about, I want people to catch the trailer that we're going to run, but I want you to tell everyone, sort of set us up. You have created this amazing documentary. What's the goal of the documentary? Tell us about the experience of creating it and a little bit more about it.
Yes. So our documentary, and this is another space that I had absolutely no intention of ever being in, making a documentary on mental health. It's called Lift the Mask. Almost everything the Quell Foundation does is called Lift the Mask because essentially we hide behind a mask. We only allow people to see what we want them to see. We hide behind a mask. And I don't want people hiding behind a mask because of mental health issues. So it's Lift the Mask, Portraits of Life with Mental Illness. And essentially what this documentary does is it follows 6 families, some more than others in greater depth, but it puts a face to mental health that's incongruent with what society might believe it looks like. It is not only folks that are homeless or hospitalized or incarcerated, it's your boss, it's your neighbor, it's your colleague, it's your professor, it's your spouse. So we wanted to be able to put a face to it to say, this is what mental health looks like. And at no point in any of their lives did somebody choose to have PTSD or bipolar disorder or anxiety or depression. It's something that happens to you. So the film is able to effectively communicate that. And the goal is, are we able to positively influence your perception of what mental health looks like by bringing this film into your community? And fortunately, we've done some research, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But we've done research on the efficacy of film's ability to positively influence. And I'm excited to share details about that.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to take a minute and we're going to share that with people right now, right here.
Great.
I can get the technology to work well. Let's see how it goes. Here we go.
All right.
Let's see.
It began with having much more paranoia than any child should have.
It's like you can't come up for air. It's almost as if all your hopes and dreams just disappear.
He would say, Dad, I'm going to tell you, it's like I'm sitting on the steps watching myself do something that I wish I wouldn't do, but I can't stop myself.
What many people think is that this is a moral issue, not a medical one.
So whenever you go to a psychologist, you're crazy. Because of that pressure, I felt kind of like, I shouldn't do that because I don't have a problem.
Is this going to be the new Michaela? Is that old Michaela gone? Are we ever going to see her happy again? Is she ever going to smile again?
He had started to feel really bad. He called the psychiatrist, like, we can see you in January. Like, we can't wait until January. So literally he was like white knuckling it.
I was right here looking at that house and realizing that he would never be back here again.
I would tell people that she died of cancer because that was respectable.
If you had a friend or a loved one that could not see the light at the end of the tunnel, would you go sit with them in the dark?
There's always a piece of me that's hopeful. Always.
She said, Mom, I feel better.
What reaches people the most is when they find out that someone in their daily life has gone through something terrible and they're still the same person that they had grown to love. That's how the fear stops.
Wow. All right. Okay. Powerful. Tell us more about this, Kevin. When is it releasing? Tell us all about how we can watch it.
Okay, so the film, as I had said before the clip, that we wanted to do a study. It wasn't enough for us to just make this documentary. I wanted to find out whether or not it impacted the viewer at all. So working with several epidemiologists, we received a review board approval to use people, humans, in a study. So we provided each of the viewers, 8,000 people have seen this film so far, all private screenings at corporate events or government events, but primarily on college campuses. This is my target population. because I believe strongly that this is the group, this is the generation of people who are really going to normalize this conversation. They're the ones who are going to be mandating that you have benefits associated with their mental health when they get into the workplace. So to study the film, we developed a question set, all de-identified. I just want to know what you think. I don't care who you are. Right. So other than some standard questions around demographics, but I would ask personal questions and then maybe not so personal questions to evaluate. So questions like, would you date somebody with a mental health condition? Would you recommend them for a job? Would you introduce them to your friends? So those are good questions, but they're arm's length questions. Yeah. And you might say, yeah, absolutely. I'm completely cool with all of that. But then we ask you closer questions. Would you allow somebody with a mental health diagnosis be the caretaker of your child? Okay. Now that's a big question, and that's in your face. And you really have to evaluate whether or not, okay, these questions I said yes to, but I'd say no to this one. Would you allow them to rent a room in your house? So this really makes you take inventory of where you are. So we did this question set before, and then we offered the questionnaire to them after the screening, sometime within a week. And then we compared the two results, and we were able to match responses because we had one question that would flag it to us. What's the name of your high school, your high school mascot, and your friend's initials. So we were able to compare, and we looked at, we stratified it by age group. We stratified it by gender. We also stratified it out by geographical location. So we have all 5 geographical locations in the United States covered. We have 16 different 16 different states. Mm-hmm. And what we found was that without exception, there was statistically significant changes, positive changes to all of our questions. So that really got me excited, a bit emotional, because it's not that we were able to move them from very unlikely to unlikely. We were able to actually measure how much we changed their opinion. And if this film was able to do that, then there's hope. Then we can say, okay, this does work. Because when you look at Dennis or Claire or Abdul, Liz, and certainly Michaela, it's hard for you to say, I would not rent a room in my house to that woman. I would not let that man take care of my child. Right. It puts a face to it. And when we personalize it like that, you come to know these people. And then at no point in the documentary are you able to identify when somebody chose to have a mental health condition. And all of these folks that are in the film are doing very well now. We care deeply about all of them. Claire is actually studying fine arts in Ireland right now, in Dublin. She got accepted with fellowship over there. She's doing fantastic. So the film has done its job. We have finished our manuscript. We're like crossing T's and dotting I's right now. And we're gonna present it for peer review and hopefully have the information published. Once we get it published, my goal is to give this film, license it to every college in the country to use as part of their library to help educate students. And then we'll also be sharing it with corporations. And we have been doing screenings with this all throughout the pandemic. So happy to provide those screenings. Yeah.
It's so good. And I love that you, what you said about it puts a face to someone with a mental illness, because I think that so many of us don't have experience with someone with a mental illness. We have perceptions of what someone who's mentally ill looks like. Sure. And it's not reality. So I really love that this documentary brings it home and really makes it personal for you to just be like, I have genuine compassion in my heart for these people, and these people have mental illness.
Yeah.
And that's what's powerful.
It is. And this is not what identifies them. It's any more than this person likes this color lipstick. It's not what identifies them. Right. This is just something that, I mean, if they have diabetes, who cares? I mean, really, who cares? Are you a good person? It's sort of like the question when we were in the military. Would you want to work with somebody who is from the LGBTQ community? You're like, I don't know. Are they a good worker? Who cares? It's not something that they can control. Right. and I shouldn't say they, we,
Right.
I'm part of that group. So
Right.
when my son was released, he wasn't successful. 103 days after he was released, Nicholas ended up getting reincarcerated. And that's because we were unable to get him the treatment that he needed. He was willing, we were willing, there was no treatment available. There was no providers available. He self-medicated, violated terms of his probation, went back to prison. When that happened, my world fell apart, and it got really bad and very dark for me for a while. And I ended up calling a suicide hotline. Now, I'm a man who wants for nothing. I have a very beautiful family. I've got a great career. All my friends from the military, a beautiful home, but none of that mattered. At that point, none of that mattered. I couldn't see the value in waiting for tomorrow because my son was just taken away from me. Never in a million years would anybody ever think that would come out of my mouth. So when I started this foundation, it wasn't as much as I wanted to say, hey, I'm here to help you folks. It was actually, I'm part of you folks with, umpteen million, over 63 million Americans living with some form of mental health condition. We likely all know someone. So when I chose to publicly say, hey, here's my personal story, I was scared. I was definitely scared. I felt like I was going to walk across the street to get my ass kicked because I'm going to share something with people that shows that I'm vulnerable.
Yeah.
But I couldn't very well ask everybody else to do that, to lift their mask, if I was unwilling to do that myself. So I wrote it all up. I had my wife take a look at it and like, are you ready for me to do this? Because it's going on all of my social media accounts. And she said, if that's what you need to do, do it. I got your back. And then I hit enter and I waited for my Navy buddies to come jump me. And the exact opposite happened. I got literally hundreds of emails and texts saying, I live with, I attempted, I take medication for. It essentially allowed other people to share with me.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most profound things I've ever done in my life because it brought me much closer to a greater population of people. And I'm thankful for that. It was risky. I mean, it seemed risky, but at the end of it, it really wasn't at all.
Oh my gosh. But you just created you just removed a barrier. You just created a safe space for other people to be them. That's so amazing to me. Yeah. And courageous as a man. I mean, I have had conversation after conversation on this series with men talking about men's mental health and this need to not be, don't divulge that. Don't be vulnerable like that. And power of you telling all of your servicemen, and the reaction is just huge.
It was huge. And I think we could, I could parallel that with our first responder community. I mean, these are absolute rock stars. They are amazing men and women. But like the military, they're afraid to show any chinks in their armor. And much like those in the military, they're always on. If you're a cop or you're a firefighter or you're EMS, you are always a cop, a firefighter, or EMS. You never just get to be Lynn. You always have to be that cop. It doesn't matter if you're at a birthday party or a Christmas or holiday party, you are always the cop or the firefighter. When do you get to just be you? So they can't show any chinks in their armor. And unfortunately, there's a direct correlation between that ability to be vulnerable and the high rates of suicide. Our first responder community has the 6th highest rate of suicide by population, by profession in the country. The 6th highest rate. These people who dedicate their lives to us, to protecting us, and to helping us are killing themselves at unprecedented rates because they can't show that vulnerability. Well, they wait too long. So our new documentary, our second one is almost complete. We'll be screening it on September 10th in Arlington, Virginia, the night before the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And we have some amazing people that show their vulnerability, that are trying to encourage the viewer, and our target audience is first responders. Don't wait 5 years or 10 years until you think you deserve or you've earned the right to ask for help. You've already earned the right. You've earned the right by existing. if you see something that impacts you negatively, reach out for help. There's nothing, we don't want you to put a gun in your mouth. We don't want you to drive your car off of a bridge. We want you to know that it's okay. So the people in this film are actually firefighters and law enforcement, EMS, 911 receptionists, which is also a population of folks you don't often associate with having a mental health condition, significant PTSD. So we're excited to share that. We're really excited to share that, and that will help stand up our training program for first responder community.
Awesome. Yes, I am a big fan of Lynette, who's in that, and I can't wait to support you all with the launch of it. And I'm actually, tell us about this ride, because I volunteered. I'm going to be part of this riding. So what is this thing about in September?
I am so excited about that. And thank you so much for signing up. I'm looking forward to it. People will think that we're nuts. And maybe we are a little left of center, but that's cool. I mean, you got to be. So one of the people who was in the documentary is Robert Gray. Robert Gray is a retired battalion captain from Arlington, Virginia. He was one of the first folks on the roof of the Pentagon after the plane crash. Bob is in the film, and this being the 20th anniversary of 9/11, we wanted to call attention to all of our first responder communities to help society see that who they are and what they do on a daily basis, the compounded trauma that they take in. So we're going to hop on a bicycle, starting at Ground Zero on September 7th with the kickoff. And we're going to bicycle down the Eastern Corridor to Arlington, Virginia, arriving on September 10th, where we will premiere our documentary that evening at the Arlington Hyatt. And then the next day, the cyclist will be laying a wreath at the Pentagon Memorial in honor of those folks who lost their lives there. We're really excited to do it. And on the way down, we're going to be stopping at different offices and organizations to help promote the film and the first responder community. Those are of our big sponsors. We're going to stop in there. Bob and folks who are part of the team are going to have the opportunity to share their stories and a little bit about the first responder documentary with the organization. It is going to be so exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
Awesome. Now switching gears, because I saw your commencement. You are an alum of Penn State, and I saw your commencement speech, and I was so moved by that. And we saw a little bit of it in the clip that you just showed. But so tell us about that, because that was a very powerful speech, and there was a definitive call to action, and I would love for you to share sort of like the gist of it and maybe like a call to action to my audience who's watching.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. That was scary. I mean, talking to that many people was really, I'm not somebody who does a lot of public speaking. I remember when the associate dean asked me to be the commencement speaker. And I said, yes, but only if you go back to your office and fire your entire search committee, because if I'm what they come up with. So he laughed a little bit, but so I did not share what I was going to be talking about. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that Catherine Metcalf, a dear, dear friend of the foundation and me personally, was instrumental in writing that speech. Such a prolific writer. And we had 6 or 7 months to work on it. But I never told anybody what I was going to talk about. I didn't tell them that I was going to be asking the students in the audience to do something that had never been done on any college campus before, because I didn't want to give them the opportunity to ask me not to do it. So I always segued when the question was being asked. Oh, I'm not done yet, putting fine touches on it. But essentially what I did is at the very end of the commencement address, I had told a story about a cycling event that I had done when a Marine said to me, listen, if you ever have a tough time seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, give me a call, which I thought was, and it was a female Marine, and she was just an amazing, amazing person, Sylvie. So at the commencement address, I said, if you had a friend, a family or loved one who couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, would you go sit with them in the dark? Would you stand up and stand beside them to show show them your support. I said, hey, I invited them. If your answer is yes, I'm asking you all to stand up right here, right now. And Michelle, it's like you hit a light switch and 14,000 people stood up. I was sick to my stomach because I'm thinking, what happens if 5 people stand up? I'm screwed. This is going to not look good. 14,000 people stood up, and the roar was just, the applaud was just thundering. It was amazing to see these college students own that.
Yeah.
And there's a few people I would thank. Jaren Ligator is a dear friend. She was one of the graduating seniors, and I had asked Jaren what I needed to do to get her attention during the commencement address. And she was very frank with me. She said, quite honestly, Mr. Lynch, we don't care what you talk about. This is for our parents, not really for us. We're going to be Snapchatting. And I was like, what do you mean? Said, if you want me to put my phone down, you better say something that shocks my system at the very beginning that makes me put it down. And that's on that advice, I shared the story about my son and myself. And that's what got everybody to listen. But great. It was just, it was an amazing time. Yeah.
I love that. And I've actually stolen that about going and sitting with someone who's in the dark because of how powerful that visual is, right?
Yeah.
Like that we do have friends like that who are not willing to tell us that they're struggling, but really just need someone there with them. So
Yeah.
I love that. That's so powerful. And the fact that you got this entire class to say yes. So
yes.
cool.
It was amazing. And you're absolutely right. We all know somebody. And over the last year, one of the many things we've lost is that ability to check in with each other on the fly. Walk past an office door. How are you doing? You okay? You cool? We don't have that ability anymore. We have to text or email or get on a Zoom call. And it's so impersonal right now, but we still have to do it, because the need is still there. But you have to be prepared to have somebody say, no, I'm not really doing okay. You have to be present and be prepared to do that. You don't have to know what to say. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. You just need to listen, but make sure that you don't leave them still needing something.
Right.
Is there somebody I can call? Do you want me to help? Should I, can I help you find somebody? Can I bring you to the hospital? Sometimes it's just knowing that the world isn't closing in on them and somebody does care, but you have to do it meaningfully. You have to be purposeful when you ask that question, or don't ask it. Really don't ask it.
Right.
Yeah.
I love the work you're doing, Kevin. The work that you're doing, in my opinion, is seriously moving the needle. And I think, there's a lot of us advocates out there who want to do more. And, between the documentary and the call to action of college students and the, proving the statistical change and altering people's perspectives around mental health. These are all massive things that you're doing. And I just applaud you. And I want to support whatever you're up to, because it's seriously what we need in society today. So is there anything, what do you wish were different about mental health and how it was perceived? Let's ask that.
I think, and I could be way off on this, but I think a lot of this is generational. And I know I've used the word normalize several times and remove the stigma, but really, what does that look like? So there is a generation of people that I belonged to for a long time who felt like just rub some dirt on it and walk it off. I went through it. You'll go through it. You'll live. Don't worry about it. But the fact is, not everybody's living. I mean, when we have 48,000 suicides a year, during the course of this interview, we're probably going to lose 4 people to suicide. Right? It's just a fact. We're probably going to lose 6 to 8 people from an overdose, which is horrible. So what I hope to have happen is that this is not something that is whispered about anymore. And what I might share is that, so I've got just a ton of interns in the last year, unbelievable college students, and many, many of them are currently working with a therapist. And I know that because they just talk about it. During the context of our conversations, they might say, my therapist told me that I should try doing this, so I did do it and it worked. And they just say it and keep on moving. They could have been talking about what they had for dinner last night or that the therapist made this recommendation. They're not waiting for your reaction because they're not expecting a reaction. Why would they? I love that about this group of people. The older generation is aging out, and some of those people are decision makers, are lawmakers, are people who are in charge of major corporations who don't see this as a problem, but it is a problem. So as the new guard comes in, this is going to be much more socially acceptable, but we have a responsibility to meet a demand. So one of the things that the Quell Foundation does, and it was part of my root cause analysis when I wrote my thesis, like when we drill into this, what is the root cause? And to me, it was access. Even if you wanted to go see a psychiatrist, you've got a 24 to 42 day wait. If you've made a decision on Monday to see a psychiatrist and you have to wait until halfway through May before you can, that's too late.
Yeah.
It's too late by then. So we are actively providing scholarships to students and actually encouraging students to choose the mental health care space. Choose this as a profession for you. And this is a very altruistic group of students. I mean, these folks are socially responsible. They want to help. I mean, think about everything that they're doing with paper straws now, and the environment, and LGBTQ, and bullying. We put a lot on their shoulders, and we're going to add more. We need them to choose this as a profession, because when folks like you and I and others out there, there's so many groups that are doing phenomenal work in this mental health care space. When we're successful and normalizing this, and people say, you know what, you're right, I need to go talk to somebody. The last thing we want them to do is be standing in the middle of the road saying, okay, where do we go? And then have no resources. So the Quell Foundation in the last 5 years has given away over $2 million in scholarships. Can't even believe that I just said that. I mean, $2 million for a startup foundation. We have students in 49 states and over 450 different universities. We provide scholarships to students who lost a parent or sibling to suicide, to students who have a mental health diagnosis and are going on. We don't care what they're studying. We think it's awesome that they're going on to school. And then to students who have chosen to be the next gen of mental health care professionals. So we provide scholarships to all those folks, and we do it with the funding that we receive from communities and corporations and individuals across the country. And we are so, so grateful for that. Clearly, last year was a tough year for fundraising. And this is not a space that I ever thought I'd be in. But we're making a difference. We're making a big difference.
You are.
So it's and our scholarship recipients, it's more than a check and, hey, have a good year. We are connected with them. They are our interns. We have peer-to-peer counseling. We set up internships with all of our partner organizations. We help with job placement, resume writing. We have a junior board of directors that is only made up of scholarship recipients that is telling us what they need. Don't, as things start to change on college campuses and in that generation, we want to make sure that we're up to date. And me being where I am, I'm 30 years removed, 35 years removed from, that age group. So it's important that we have those folks, and we're bringing them up from our junior board to our advisory board. And I'm sure someday, 5-10 years down the road, they'll be on our board of directors. It's
Amazing.
So great. It's so great.
So good. Kevin, you're doing such awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. So we are about to wrap up our time together. Do you have any final words of wisdom you'd like to share, or anything you want us to know? Anything else you want people to know about the Quell Foundation?
Well, thank you, Michelle, and thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. So the Quell Foundation has a couple of major events coming up, and we would love for you to join in with us. One is the 9/11 Memorial Ride. So you can go to our website. You see it on the ribbon across the bottom. We still have 3 more spaces for cyclists to join us. We're looking strongly at the first responder community. We're going to raise a lot of money and just have an amazing event. So that's coming up the first week in September. On October 16th, we're doing our keynote fundraising event, and that is the Masquerade Ball. Everybody's required to wear a mask, and early in the evening, our guest speaker will invite us to lift our mask. And that's going to be out in Minneapolis this year, as I said, on October 16th. It is a major fundraiser for us. We usually generate somewhere between $700 and $900 to $1 million, $700,000 to $1 million. That helps fund all of our programs. I think it's important to know that as the founder and CEO of this foundation, I don't draw a salary and I pay all of my own expenses. I want the money to go where it's supposed to be going to. It's really important that we help, because I think that when we band together collectively, we can reduce the suicides, we can reduce overdoses, and certainly in the incarceration of people with a treatable mental health care condition. And I'm really excited to roll out our film down in Arlington and start sharing that with you as well. But thanks so much for this opportunity, Michelle. I am so very, very grateful to you.
Kevin, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all the great work you're doing. Thank you for who you are in the world. And I look forward to the ride, and I look forward to supporting you and cheering you on with all the great work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.